You asked for it, here's how to tackle all 4 big safety concerns when oil painting. First, we have the dangers of Gamsol, odorless paint thinner, turpentine, etc. These chemicals are the reasons why people tell you need so much ventilation when oil painting. It's because they're really bad for you. Long-term exposure to these chemicals in the air or to your skin or both cause all kinds of long-term issues. So the easiest way to avoid this is simply to not use these chemicals. A lot of people say that you need this to clean your brushes at the very least, but you really don't. If you use one of these linseed oil coil jars, it allows you to scrub off a lot of that paint pigment and keep it inside of the jar before washing anything potentially harmful down your sink. And you don't have to replace it every time either, because all of the pigment will settle to the bottom and the clean oil stays at the top where you'll actually be rinsing your brush. If you do want to use turpentine or odorless mineral spirits, because there are a lot of other uses for them that I will go through at some point, you do want to make sure that you have really good studio ventilation, and not just while you're painting. That ventilation needs to stay on during the entire time that the terpenoid is evaporating, and ideally several hours later, just to make sure. My last note on paint thinner: if you are someone with little furry friends, just skip this stuff. They are so much more sensitive to their air and their environment than we are, and I'm telling you right now, it's just not worth it. Our second safety concern is using linseed oil. Linseed oil itself is actually not very problematic. The danger from linseed oil does not come from its fumes or for accidentally touching it or ingesting it. The danger with linseed oil is that if you leave a linseed oil soaked rag bunched up, the oxidation process of that linseed oil starting to dry, encouraged by the insulation of a rag being bunched up and balled up, can actually cause spontaneous combustion. And this is no joke, guys. These fires can really ruin someone's life. Thankfully though, it is actually super easy to make sure that you never ever have to see this happen. All you gotta do is just make sure that when you are finished with any rags, paper towels, anything that has linseed oil soaked in them, that you're not bunching them into a tiny little ball or throwing them in a pile. Instead, lay them out flat, preferably hanging them over something so that they are getting as aerated as possible as they dry, and they will not have the chance to build up tons of heat in this tiny insulated pocket. Instead, any little amounts of heat that they're generating as they go through the oxidation process will simply radiate off them into the air, and it won't become an issue for you. Our third safety concern is going to be any sort of toxic pigments that are used in oil paint. There are a long list of potentially hazardous pigments used in all kinds of paints. One of the most popular ones is cadmium. Now, plenty of places where you will see cadmium red listed are in fact just using a different, less toxic version of it. But if you do want the real thing, because I mean, look at that, you can totally still use it without it being super harmful. All you gotta do when handling some hazardous pigments is wear gloves, maybe wear one of your COVID masks, keep an apron on, and don't eat the paint. A lot of these chemicals are going to require large amounts of long-term exposure to do any sort of real damage. So if you're taking those smaller precautions, I promise you will be just fine. Same thing, if you've got little ones, little pets running around the house, maybe just stick to the non-toxic stuff, just to be safe. Finally, safety concern number 4 is making sure that you are properly disposing of all of these potentially hazardous materials that could affect you to make sure that they don't potentially harmfully affect others. You can do this super easily by keeping all of your hazardous waste stored in one area, still making sure that all those linseed rags are not bunched up together though, and regularly scheduling visits over to your local hazardous waste center. If you don't live super close to one, it's okay. Even regular full-time painters only have to take a few trips a year to these places, but they're really your only golden ticket for being able to actually be environmentally respectful while disposing of a lot of these toxic chemicals. Art is fun and all, but not when you're washing really toxic stuff down your drain.